Join our community by subscribing. Every click helps us share more stories like this one. The introduction. In the small, seemingly idyllic town of Oakwood, nestled between rolling hills and dense woodlands, a shadow loomed just beneath its surface. Immunity, known for its charming main street and friendly faces, held a secret that would soon claw its way into the light. Something horrific, unexpected, and yet all too real. It was early spring, the air still crisp with the last whispers of winter, when a local teenager, Jamie Richards, set off for an evening run. A dedicated athlete, Jamie had trained for months for the upcoming track season and was often found pushing her limits in the expansive park that bordered the town. With earbuds in place and the sun sinking behind the trees, she felt invincible. But a sense of unease settled over Oakwood that evening, as if the very air thickened with anticipation. Locals went about their routines, unaware that the warmth of the sun would soon be eclipsed by the chilling news that would spread like wildfire through their tight-knit community. As the sky bled into deep hues of red and violet, the park grew dimmer. Jamie began her cool down, jogging on the well-trodden path that meandered through tall pines and bustling wildlife. A few minutes later, she slowed to a stop near her favorite bench, the one that overlooked a serene pond. It was there that everything changed. The echoes of laughter and the vibrant sounds of nature were replaced by a silence that felt unnatural, heavy, as if the world held its breath. Jamie never returned home, and as night fell, darkness wrapped itself around Oakwood, intertwining with fear of what secrets lay ahead. Victim. Jamie Richards was known throughout Oakwood, not just for her athletic prowess, but for her unwavering spirit and infectious smile. A straight-A student at Oakwood High, she balanced her time between studies, track meets, and part-time work at the local coffee shop. Jamie had a close-knit group of friends, and together they epitomized the town's idyllic youth, a tapestry of dreams, laughter, and plans for the future. But there was more to Jamie than met the eye. Beneath the surface of the bubbly teenager lay layers of complexity that many had yet to discover. She struggled at times with the weight of expectation, feeling the pressure to excel in everything she pursued. Despite the unwavering support from her parents, Susan and Tom, it was her own inner dialogue that often proved the most challenging part of her daily life. Just 2 nights before her disappearance, Jamie had confided in her best friend, Emily, about feeling overwhelmed. During a late-night study session, they had discussed college applications and how every choice felt monumental. Emily remembered Jamie's eyes, bright but clouded with uncertainty. "What if I don't find the right school?" Jamie had whispered, her voice barely audible over the hum of their conversation. "What if I let everyone down?" That was the essence of Jamia, a young woman, filled with ambition yet grappling with the chaos that came with it. Her friends had reassured her, reminding her of the countless ways she excelled. But there remained an unspoken fear that something lay just beneath her determination. As news of her disappearance spread through Oakwood, the town began to unwrap. Friends, family, and neighbors struggled with the enormity of the situation. They gathered, candles in hand, outside the coffee shop where she worked, each flickering flame a testament to the hope that Jamie would walk through the door any moment, ready to share her contagious laughter once again. Yet, for every candle lit, a deeper worry brewed, intertwining their lives with the question, who would dare to harm such a vibrant soul? The crime scene, Dawn broke over Oakwood. The sun cast long shadows through the trees, illuminating the soft dew on the grass like diamonds scattered through the park. But beauty had given way to chaos. A group of searchers had gathered near the promenade of anxious friends and relatives who were ushered to the designated waiting area by officers clad in blue. The formalities of a police investigation had begun to take shape, driven by urgency and growing dread. Hours earlier, a jogger had stumbled upon the scene that would redefine Oakwood's tranquility. Instead of the rhythmic sound of wildlife, a sense of foreboding filled the air under the stillness of the trees. The jogger, a local resident named Mark, was merely seeking his own refuge. But instead, he discovered a horror that none could prepare for: fragments of clothing near the water's edge, the unmistakable symbol of a struggle. By the time authorities arrived, the park had transformed into a crime scene, sections cordoned off with bright yellow tape that disrupted the natural beauty of the area. Forensic teams moved deliberately, collecting evidence from the ground as they documented the surroundings. The investigators, seasoned by years of experience in the field, were careful yet swift, knowing that every detail was vital for unraveling what had unfolded in the darkness of the night. With cameras clicking and notes being taken, they uncovered a shirt, torn and disturbed, clinging stubbornly to the thick brush. Further examination revealed remnants of a struggle, scattered footprints muddying the path, some leading away from the scene, while others seemed to vanish into the trees, swallowed by the undergrowth. It was a game of hide and seek, the land itself concealing secrets that would need to be pried from its depths. As investigators meticulously searched the area for more clues, the community held its collective breath, each individual lost in thoughts of Jamie's face, her laughter, and a future shrouded in uncertainty. A darkness had infiltrated their haven, and what had once been a place of sanctuary now echoed with unanswered questions. Who had been lurking in the shadows, and why had they targeted Jamie? As officers continued their work, the clock relentlessly ticked against the odds, the desperate hope for Jamie's return tethered to the vulnerability of time. The early investigation. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, illuminating Oakwood in a harsh, unsettling light, investigators scrambled to piece together the fragments of Jamie's disappearance. In the heart of the police station, detectives convened to assess the situation. Detective Sarah Mitchell, with over 15 years of experience, took the lead. She had a keen intuition for reading people and a methodical approach to unraveling the truth that lurked beneath layers of confusion. The first step was to interview Jamie's family and friends. They gathered in the small conference room, faces drawn tight with worry. Each person arrived, a mix of fear and determination etched into their expressions. Detective Mitchell began with Jamie's parents, their voices trembling as they recounted the last day they had seen their daughter. "She left for her run around 5, Susan recalled, choking on her words. Tears glimmered in her eyes as she added, "She was so excited about track practice. She had been training hard." Detective Mitchell noted the details, the planning, the anticipation of a simple run. She pressed gently, asking about Jamie's relationships, her routine, and even any recent changes her parents might have noticed. As they spoke, it became clear that Jamie had no known enemies. If anything, she was infectious in her charisma. However, there were fleeting mentions of a recent falling out with another girl on the track team, a subtle crack in the otherwise perfect veneer of her life. As the interviews wrapped up, forensics processed the evidence from the scene, and the preliminary reports began filtering in. A promising lead emerged. 2 witnesses had reported an old rusted pickup truck parked in the vicinity during the time of Jamie's disappearance. Its driver, described only as a man with a scruffy beard, was now a person of interest. Detective Mitchell shared this information with her team, their minds racing. They directed patrol officers to canvass the area, hoping to gather more eyewitness accounts or security footage from nearby businesses. Outside the station, a palpable energy hung in the air, driven by the urgency to bring Jamie home. As darkness loomed later that day, the realization settled over the team. They were against the clock, and every second counted. The town that had once appeared so serene was now unraveling, and they were determined to find the thread that led them back to Jamie. The dead ends. Days passed under the weight of impending despair, the search for Jamie Richards becoming a grim and exhausting endeavor. As leads materialized and dissipated like mist under the morning sun, the warmth of hope began to feel suffocated by uncertainty. Empty streets echoed the growing anxiety of a town on edge, where every murmur carried the weight of grim possibility. Detective Sarah Mitchell convened her team once again. They gathered around a cluttered table strewn with notes, photographs, and maps of Oakwood. Each potential lead was fervently pursued, yet often ended in disappointment. What had once seemed promising, a rusted pickup truck and a witness account, foundered as no additional sightings emerged. No further clues surfaced, and soon the entire town appeared under scrutiny. One particular tip, a fleeting mention from a local teen claiming to have spotted Jamie near the park's entrance the night she vanished, spiraled into confusion. Investigators combed through grainy surveillance footage, only to find that the timestamp matched yet another case of misidentification. The figure was not Jamie, but rather a passerby, long since forgotten. Frustration dripped through the cracks of the investigation, where good intentions faltered against the relentless tide of dead ends. Another lead materialized from an anonymous tip about a supposedly abandoned house on the outskirts of Oakwood. With cautious optimism, officers approached the dilapidated structure, only to find it empty and devoid of any immediate evidence. The dust settled there, untouched, preserving only the haunting stillness that seemed to mock their efforts. As the team regrouped, Detective Mitchell felt the growing strain of the unanswered questions weighing heavy on. Every time we turn over a stone, it feels like we're just revealing more dirt, she admitted. The urgency in her voice was palpable. They were losing momentum. The community's sense of safety, once unwavering, had become fractured, with whispers amplifying paranoia. Outside, candlelight vigils had turned somber, lighting up the dusk, but not the darkness that seemed to cling. Friends and family gathered each night, offering prayers and pledges of support, searching for answers that eluded them. For Jamie's loved ones, the absence was more than felt. It was a gnawing emptiness that echoed through their lives. Despair settled like fog over Oakwood. Time slipped away, while a search for answers seemed increasingly futile with every day that passed. The hope of finding Jamie alive grew dimmer. A break in the case. Amid the fog of uncertainty and frustration that gripped the investigation, an unexpected glimmer of hope emerged on the 7th day since Jamie had vanished. The local police received a tip from a resident who lived near the edge of Oakwood, an older gentleman named Harold, known for his meticulous nature and keen observational skills. He reported an unusual incident that had occurred in the early hours following Jamie's disappearance. Harold described seeing a vehicle parked near the woods, uncharacteristically dark in color, and parked at an odd angle. He had initially dismissed it as an oddity, but something about the way it sat against the morning mist struck him as out of place. The man had taken note of the license plate, which he could only partially recall, but the description of the vehicle rang some bells. It sounded remarkably similar to the rusted pickup truck that had been mentioned in previous witness reports. Detective Sarah Mitchell and her team wasted no time following the lead. They gathered the necessary information from Harold and began poring over local DMV records, cross-referencing vehicles with similar description. Hours turned into an anxious search until finally they identified an Onera man named Ethan Turner, known in the community as a loner who had lived in town for years but largely kept to himself. The team mobilized, dispatching officers to Ethan's home, a weathered cabin at the edge of town. Tension hung in the air as they approached, knowing that every moment mattered. With no signs of struggle or resistance, they entered and began a methodical search of the property. The musty scent of neglect permeated the air. Each shadow, a reminder of what they sought. In the back of the house, amid overgrown weeds and discarded items, they discovered an outdoor shed that had been locked tight. With the proper authorizations in hand, the officers forced it open and peered inside, their hearts racing with anticipation. What they found sent ripples of realization through the team's various items that appeared to belong to Jamie. A water bottle bearing her name, a distinctive headband she was known for wearing during track practice, and scattered personal effects. The overwhelming sense of dread that enveloped them was palpable. They were closing in on the truth, but with it came the harrowing uncertainty of what that truth might reveal. As they collected the evidence, Detective Mitchell felt a surge of mixed emotions: grief for Jamie's fate, hope for justice, and a growing determination to unravel the tangled narrative that lay ahead. It was a break they had desperately sought, but it was also a frightening reminder that the dust of the investigation had begun to clear, revealing a darker, more sinister reality that they would now need to confront head-on. The suspect, with leads sharpening like knives, the investigation shifted sharply towards Ethan Turner. Detected primarily by his reclusive behavior, he had often been regarded as an enigma in Oakwood, someone whose absence from community activities was as noted as his frequent visits to secluded corners of the wood. As officers delved deeper into his life, they uncovered an unsettling pattern marked by minor run-ins with the law, an obsession with collecting cast-off items, and a murky past that had left more questions than answers. Detective Sarah Mitchell coordinated an extensive background check that revealed Ethan's history of behavioral issues and social isolation. He had been a troubled youth. Whispers from past classmates hinted at violent tendencies that he managed to suppress over the years. Witness statements portrayed him as difficult, sometimes erratic a man, well acquainted with his shadow. As investigators began to piece together his whereabouts around the time of Jamie's disappearance, they found that he had been spotted on surveillance cameras near the park earlier that evening, lurking at the edges, often adjusting his cap to hide his face from view. The footage depicted an unsettling image of a man fixated on something or someone just beyond his reach. The detectives noted the timeline and realized he had proximity and opportunity. By late afternoon, they had diligently gathered enough evidence to secure a search warrant for Ethan's residence. Mitchell felt a surge of adrenaline. It felt as if she stood on the precipice of discovery. As an armored team of officers approached the weather-beaten cabin, there was a heavy weight on all of their shoulders, knowing that whatever lay ahead could be pivotal in determining Jamie's fate. The cabin smelled of stale cigarettes and something deeply unsettling, as if representing a life in decay. As the team fanned out, they methodically searched each room, but it was the shed, previously ignored by Ethan, that lured the most dread. Within, they excavated a tapestry of junk and memorabilia relics from lives never quite turned to dust. Chilling moment. They found a diary nestled between layers of old newspapers. Pages were filled with confessional jottings that became increasingly erratic, documenting Ethan's day-to-day life, alongside ramblings about the girl in the park. As they flipped through the pages, unease rippled through the officer's references to watching Jamie, to thoughts that read more like obsession than admiration. "Mitchell, come look at this," called one of the officers, pointing to a page that bore sketches of Jamie, drawn with strange detail and precision, but tinged with darkness. Detective Mitchell felt a knot tighten in her stomach. As they exited the shed, Ethan turned up unexpectedly, his eyes wide, alarms ringing in his head. He squinted into the sunlight, taking in the scene a frantic collection of officers, a stolen moment to see how close they had got. Mitchell sensed his fear mingled with defiance, and her instincts kicked in. The chase was on, but this time she was ready. They had a suspect, but the evidence they unearthed felt like the edge of a knife dangerously close to cutting through to something they needed to confront head-on. The shadows were beginning to reveal their secrets, but darkness could hide in plain sight. The trial. The courtroom buzzed with an unspoken tension on the day of Ethan Turner's trial. A palpable mix of fear and resolve filled the air as family, friends, and the entire community packed the benches, united by their desire for justice. A hush fell over the crowd as the judge entered, an austere figure who commanded attention with an air of gravitas. Ethan sat at the defendant's table, a picture of unsettling calmness. Gone was the man lurking in the shadows. He now appeared almost fragile, as if all the bravado had drained from him. His weathered hands trembled slightly, but his eyes bore an aloofness that belied the gravity of the charges against. Was he a monster or just a man who had stumbled too far into darkness? Detective Sarah Mitchell took her place in the witness stand, a meticulous unraveling of the evidence about to unfold. She recounted the events leading to Jamie's disappearance with unwavering clarity, detailing the timeline, the search, and the moment they discovered the items within Ethan's shed. Her voice steady but laden with emotion, she described the investigation's evolution from hopeful leads to chilling discoveries. Each word resonated, hanging in the air like the scent of despair. As the prosecution presented its case, the evidence painted a damning portrait of Ethan. Witnesses recounted encounters with him, his obsessive behavior surrounding Jamie, and the unsettling sketches found in his diary that detailed his fixate. They described exactly how his features morphed into something grotesque in their memories. Whispers of danger that lingered just out of sight. Despite the compelling evidence, Ethan's defense attorney was relentless, highlighting inconsistencies in witness testimonies and casting doubt on the validity of the evidence collected. "You cannot convict a man based solely on the imagination of others," he argued vehemently, seeking to imbue a kind of humanity into a figure drowned in shadows. Ethan, however, grew increasingly agitated throughout the trial. His facade of calm began to crack under pressure. Witnesses retold their stories, their words weaving a narrative of a girl gone too soon, of a vibrant light extinguished before her time. The emotional weight bore down on the courtroom, uniting all those gathered in grief for Jamie. As weeks progressed, the jury was faced with a decision that would echo throughout Oakwood for years. No longer simply a narrative, the trial had transformed into a confrontation of darkness versus hope, of remembering a beloved girl who wanted to run after her dreams. The community watched, breath bated, as the verdict was delivered guilty. Relief washed over Detective Mitchell as the words left the judge's lips, but it was tinged with a sadness that felt insurmountable. There was no joy in judgment. The verdict was but a small step towards healing for a shattered community, a stark reminder that happiness can intertwine with pain. As they exited the courtroom, many held hands, whispering prayers for Jamie's memory, vowing to move forward with their lives while ensuring that she would never be forgotten. In the end, justice had been served. Yet the scars remained a haunting reminder of what the shadows could claim. Oakwood would heal, but the light of Jamie Richards would forever flicker on in the hearts of those who loved her, eternal yet bittersweet against the landscape of their stories. The aftermath. In the weeks that followed the trial, Oakwood sought to reclaim its sense of normalcy, but the scars of tragedy lingered like an unresolved chord. Banners and posters adorned the town square, reminders of Jamie Richards' face smiling down from every corner, a bittersweet beacon of what once was. As community members revisited the pain, they found themselves grappling with an overwhelming wave of emotions. Sorrow, anger, but also a shared desire for change. Detective Sarah Mitchell, still reeling from the trial's impact, took on a new role. Encouraged by a small coalition of Jamie's friends and family, she spearheaded an initiative to promote awareness about violence against women and the importance of community vigilance. The campaign, aptly named Run with Light, sought to create a safe environment where young women could pursue their passions without fear. The program launched with a community event held at the park, the very place where Jamie's laughter once rang out. The air hung thick with emotion as residents donned bright yellow shirts, a testament to their commitment to remembering Jamie while championing safety. Participants listened intently to survivor stories, engaged in workshops on self-defense, and embraced discussions about healthy relationships. The park was transformed, filled with laughter, tears, and the collective understanding that they could not ignore the shadows and they learned to cast light upon them. Yet despite their efforts, whispers of unease continued to ripple through Oakwood. Rumors about Ethan's sentence, the possibility of parole, seemed to haunt many, a specter looming over the town. Residents recalled the chilling diary entries, the methodical obsessions that felt all too familiar. Tension and paranoia simmered just beneath the surface. Sarah herself often found her thoughts drifting back to Jamie. She visited the family's home, now a place of mixed memories where grief clung to every wall. Together, they all honored Jamie's memory, sharing stories that intertwined laughter with loss. Each embrace and tear solidified their bond, a newfound resilience sparked by tragedy. As Oakwood began to forge a path toward healing, Detective Mitchell realized that the town's journey was far from over. They were growing stronger, but the vulnerability remained, a reminder that darkness could return if ignored. In town meetings, She encouraged citizens to reclaim the park not only as a sacred space for Jamie, but also as a venue for connection and vigilance. Together, they would ensure that Jamie's light would carry on through each person they united. The winding path toward recovery was laid before them, and all they had to do was trust. They'd extend their arms toward the future, vowing to honor Jamie by never letting fear overshadow their lives. As summer rolled in, they began to breathe easier, knowing that they were not just survivors, but together a vigilant community, forever changed yet determined to thrive. Each step, each run through the park would echo with the knowledge that they carried Jamie with them, her spirit lighting the way forward. Reflection. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting an orange-pink glow over Oakwood, Detective Sarah Mitchell sat on the bench overlooking the park's pond where Jamie once ran free. The gentle lap of water against the shore seemed to carry echoes of laughter and light from a past that felt just out of reach. In moments of solitude, she often found herself reflecting on the impact of Jamie's case not just for the detectives involved, but for an entire community irrevocably altered by tragedy. The events that had unfolded wove a complicated tapestry of grief interlaced with resilience. Each victim, each name, and every story recounted became part of a broader narrative that called for vigilance, compassion. Oakwood had learned to face the shadows, transforming fear into collective strength. Jamie's name had become a rallying cry, reminding everyone of the fragility of life, yet also its resilient beauty. In convening community gatherings, safety seminars, and educational sessions, Sarah felt a sense of purpose blossom. Jamie's light continued to shine through those untouched tragedies, inspiring hope among countless others who faced similar struggles. Every conversation sparked a change, ensuring the past wouldn't repeat itself. As dusk enveloped the park in a soft embrace, she made a silent promise to Jamie and her family to carry their legacy forward, in pursuit of a world where vulnerability was met with guardianship, and where every heart could find a safe place to dream. Oakwood was not just healing, it was awakening, and with each passing day, they would honor Jamie's spirit by nurturing that light.